Welcome back to RCL Nightly News. I'm your host, Cara Dore. Tonight we will be doing a special on everyone's favorite gateway drug, marijuana. In the last 20 or so years, 20 states have legalized marijuana for medical purposes. What has caused the most recent controversy over marijuana legalization, though, is Washington and Colorado's 2012 joint decision to legalize marijuana for recreational purposes. With this pivotal decision comes a heated debate over whether it is foolish or sensible to legalize the drug for the average U.S. citizen. Before we dive into the current state of the marijuana controversy, here's Carver with a look at marijuana legalization over the last few decades. Let's hash this thing out.
Until 1913, marijuana use was legal in the United States. It was largely used for medical purposes. In 1850, it was added to the U.S. Pharmacopoeia, classifying the plant as a treatment for a multitude of ailments, including tetanus, typhus, cholera, alcoholism, opiate addiction, convulsive disorders, and tonsillitis. Amongst a wave of prohibitionist sentiment in the early 1900s, California banned the use of marijuana in 1913. By 1927, 11 other states had followed suit. Marijuana became illegal across the nation in 1937 with the Marijuana Tax Act. This act outlawed the possession or transfer of cannabis throughout the United States. In 1942, marijuana was removed from the U.S. Pharmacopoeia, thereby losing its medical legitimacy. Starting in the 50s and 60s, the Beat Generation emerged. Poets like Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg were born during the Great Depression and lived through the Second World War. This led to an overwhelming disillusionment with society and an urgent desire to escape from the harsh realities of the world. The Beat Generation wrote poetry that condemned society and also promoted ideas that would influence the hippie movement about a decade later. One of these ideas was the notion that the use of marijuana could expand one's consciousness and allow escape from political and social problems. The Beat Generation flourished in New York City and San Francisco, cities that gave birth to the hippie movement of the late 60s and 70s. The hippie years of the late 60s and early 70s are widely considered the golden age of marijuana. These are the times most often recalled by the proponents of marijuana. In a counterculture movement, the youth of the day transgressed social boundaries by smoking marijuana, engaging in free love, and protesting the war in Vietnam. In 1973, President Richard Nixon fortified his anti-drug policy by founding the Drug Enforcement Administration. In 1996, California became the first state to legalize the use of marijuana for medical purposes. Since then, 19 more states and the District of Columbia have legalized marijuana for either medical and/or recreational use. Most recently, Colorado and Washington legalized it for recreational use in 2012, and Illinois and New Hampshire legalized it in some form in 2013. The history of marijuana is often related with the history of alcohol. Many relate the last century to the prohibition of alcohol. The trend seems, to many, to be one of legalization and tolerance. However, there is much opposition to this, and public discourse around the issue remains divided.
Thanks, Carver. Now we will transition to our field reporter, Josh, with Penn State students' ideas about marijuana.
Thank you, Cara. The recreational use of marijuana in our society has become more and more prevalent, especially on college campuses. I'm here on the campus of Penn State University to talk with fellow students about their ideas and opinions on marijuana and about its influence on our college culture. Do you believe that marijuana is harmful to your health?
I do believe marijuana is harmful to your health. Inhaling anything other than air is usually bad for your lungs. And stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, great. Since a lot of states are now legalizing weed, do you think legalizing marijuana makes it more or less attractive to users?
I think more people will try it, but I think there'll be less chronic users because it takes away the thrill of doing something
right. There's no
illicit.
Rebellious human nature part of it now. What is weed culture on campus like? Is there a huge culture behind marijuana users? And
it's really prevalent, yeah. In the dorms, you see it happening, you smell it happening.
You smell it happening?
Yeah, downtown.
All right. Do you ever run into troubles with it? Do you ever have problems with the weed culture on campus?
No, I've never had experience with weed before. But as far as just relationships with people that have, I've never had a problem.
Great.
But I just know that there have been problems, just not things that have affected me.
Compared to alcohol, which one do you think is more harmful, weed or alcohol?
I think alcohol is more dangerous because it really impairs your judgment, and you hear about it all the time, like getting in car accidents,
right.
drunk driving and everything. So I think alcohol would be
a bit more harmful. Yeah. Great. This is Josh for RCL Nightly News. Back to you, Cara.
Those interviews were pretty dope indeed. But what makes the controversy over marijuana different now from the controversy earlier in our country's history? In decades past, the people who were arguing for marijuana's legalization were usually part of a counterculture movement, and therefore often disregarded as rebellious nonconformist youth. Today, many of the people arguing for the drug's legalization are more credible and thus hold more weight with their opinions. Let's transition to Kerstyn, who will weed out the professional opinions from the masses.
Professional discussion around marijuana remains a dividing topic amongst politicians. President Obama's administration has consistently reiterated its firm opposition to any form of drug legislation, despite his admitted past use of marijuana. The Justice Department has stated it will not challenge any state marijuana laws, however. President Obama's administration seems more concerned about decreasing usage than arresting users. Proponents of legislation have looked to the Netherlands for leadership. The Netherlands has successfully decriminalized the usage of marijuana and has become a leader that is looked to in the progressive legislation of the substance. Dispelling the notion that legislation creates potheads, the Netherlands has a lower lifetime usage rate at 22% than its neighbors in the United States, which sits at over 40%. Many see legalization or decriminalization as a way to lower crime. Some 20 million Americans have been arrested in connection with marijuana over the last century of illegalization. Maybe more potent is the medical argument over the substance. In 2013, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, chief medical correspondent for CNN, wrote an article about his transforming views on medical marijuana. Even as late as 2009, he was an opponent of medical marijuana usage. In opposition to what opponents are now saying, he claims it doesn't have a high potential for abuse, and there are a very legitimate medical applications. Compared to tobacco at 30%, marijuana has a dependency rate of 9 to 10%. Many opponents point to the high levels of the chemical THC in marijuana as potentially harmful. The levels today are much higher than those of the hippie generation. This chemical, however, has many potential health benefits. The American Cancer Society does not advocate inhaling smoke nor the legalization of marijuana, although the organization does support carefully controlled clinical studies for alternative delivery methods, specifically a THC skin patch. This would eliminate the potential damage that the smoke itself would do to the lung.
The danger of marijuana inhalation does not deter some of its proponents from smoking it. College students compose a large portion of this group, even the college students at Penn State. I ventured around campus and the surrounding area to investigate the prominence of marijuana at Penn State.
I'm here in the heart of downtown State College, and behind me is a well-known drug paraphernalia shop. As you can see, it is made easily accessible to Penn State students right here on College Avenue.
In addition to the marijuana paraphernalia shop known as Jamaica Junction in the downtown area, the prominence of the drug is also seen on campus.
Here, and here, and here is a said marijuana paraphernalia in the form of a pot leaf that reflects the sentiment of a select group of Penn State students here on campus.
Thanks, Kerstyn. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks for joining us on RCL Nightly News. Until next time, I'm Cara Dore. Stay classy, Penn State.